All right.
Wow.
This is the 20th meeting of the LTAC committee. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. This is November 5th meeting of the LTAC committee. We've been asked by the City Council to reduce our recommendation of expenditures from $125,000 to $100,000. To recap at our last meeting, there were a couple items that we talked about. One was if we were looking at this as a 2-year biennium budget, would we be able to what would the nonprofits like, whether they would like 125 now with the uncertainty of knowing that it could be 75 next time. And also would the city, which currently doesn't have a policy about LTAC, put together a policy, and two, be willing to, at the mid-year, depending on how revenues were coming in from LTAC, be willing to look at to see if they wanted to review it and increase the amount at mid-year. So let me back up a little bit. I'll let Brandy talk about what the information was from the nonprofits, and then I'll talk to you about my discussions with the mayor and several council members.
Okay, so I sent it out to the applicants. Most of them said ditto, but I'm going to tell you what POBSA in Sydney, they responded that it would be better to keep the $100,000 each year. It would be much harder to plan the budget with that kind of drop over the next year. In addition, if there are new players in 2020, it would make it more difficult for everyone. And then a couple members said ditto to that one. And then the other comment, this came from Matt with the chamber. I think it would be more prudent to stick with the $100,000 that is available for each year. This allows each organization to maintain a consistent funding level for both years. Every year, as a result of funding allocation, we are forced to prioritize our budgets and programs. I appreciate the committee's effort to fund as much as possible, and as painful it may be, we may all need to reevaluate again this year. Please extend my thanks to the committee for their hard work on this difficult task, and I am sure that they will make the best decision as they possibly can. Fathoms of Fun said they agree with Matt, same with Visit Kitsap, and same with Kitsap Mustang Club. And am I missing anybody? And then the Saints, you spoke to the Saints directly, and
they said go for the higher.
Okay.
So that is what I have to offer on that. And then I just wanted to share with you what I shared with Lorraine. Lorraine had sent an email and asked a couple things. One, she wanted to know what other jurisdictions, meaning Bremerton and Kitsap County, does with their over-projected unspent lodging tax funding. And then she also wanted to know, was there any other years that the city specifically used the reserve? She said that Fathoms of Fund mentioned that they were allocated additional funds for their celebration. And my response to her was that I didn't know what other jurisdictions do, but I would make that call, and I have a response from one of them. And then what I did tell her was in 2013, I should have printed that email, but in 2013 the city allocated additional funds for a marketing director. And then, or excuse me, that was in, now I'm getting my dates mixed up. That was actually in 2011 they did that, and then in 2013 they reopened it up for Saints to reapply or apply, because for some reason they were missing out of the application process, so they opened it up for those two reasons. Again, in 2011 and 2013.
But Fathoms wasn't allocated anything else?
And then that I seen outside of the original allocation. And then I did find two memos from 2000 and 2001 where the council as a whole just opened it up, and it looks like many people applied because it had the allocation in a memo. A couple thousand here and there type of thing, wasn't anything big. So that's all I was able to find from there. However, in my research, I did find this memo from a previous treasurer in 2013 where he defined what he thought was I wanted to see what he defined. I cannot find it. Surplus funds. So you guys can read that and see what that was. I did leave the message for Bremerton. I wasn't able to get a hold of Bremerton, but I did talk to Kitsap County, and Kitsap County said that what they do is they do hold a surplus for the fact that in case if it comes short. But most of the time they will consider it, she will consider it in the new numbers. So if they have a projection of, you know, 400,000, and they had a surplus of extra funds, she'll add to it. Sometimes just depends on what she thinks that the forecast is going to be, but for the most part, they do have a healthy, they do decide what is going to be in that fund, if you will, in case of shortfall. But their stance is it needs to be spent. There doesn't need to be a healthy fund, and if there is, they include it in the next year's response. And they do what we do, which is added into the contract that says, hey, if there's a shortage of revenue, we won't be able to pay out. And then what they do, which I don't know if we do or not, but what they also do to help use up the reserve or the overages of what comes in is they actually charge staff time, so against that account. So she said that she spends annually about 104 hours, and they charge that admin cost out of the funds of their lodging tax.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, oh, okay.
It sounds like double banging it to a certain case.
Yeah, so that's what I know.
Well, the mayor and the council have both agreed that there needs to be a discussion about surplus and a definition and a policy toward it. I don't think this will, from Alan, will constitute that by any stretch of the imagination. And also that they're willing to open it up for that discussion in mid-year. So that's where we're at. Can you excuse me for 1 second? I have a kind of interesting. Yep. So we're back in. So roughly, I mean, on the board, you know, there's the ask, recommended that we did, and then, you know, as we've kind of beaten around the bush more than once, is take it down to 100,000. Otherwise, we can stay at 125, realizing that there may be a change from the council, but more than likely that would only authorize 75 for next time. So that's where we're at, and I will facilitate from this point on with 3 members here. So
what you're getting out of everything is that they'd like us to go back to
100,000.
From 100,000.
Yes. Yeah. If you're adamant about staying at 125, then it would be with the idea of 75 next year would be the starting part. They can't guarantee that they would do 100,000 out of you know, making that up from the reserves. So,
But at some time, the council and the mayor want to get together and reading what you said, they want to find out what is this?
yeah, and
What's the meaning of the balance?
And that's my commitment to you guys. My commitment to you guys is that by mid-year we will have this.
If it's sitting there, why aren't we spending
Yeah. Well, we'll have that answer.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that there won't be, but I can't promise that. But at least we'll have definition going into it. So my first question would be to you: is 125 or 100?
I say 100.
It's probably gonna have to be 100.
Yeah, I'll go the majority. I still believe in the 125, but yeah.
I do too,
everybody else is-
and I was telling Randy earlier from what I saw from the hotel revenues this year, me coming in, that in July and August and September, we broke all records.
Mm-hmm.
And this October was the best October they've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I project it's gonna be higher than what you guys think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of fall back to what the entities said when they were asked, and you know, it didn't sound like they wanted to take that
Yeah, we wanna
gamble.
take the risk.
So I think that
Yeah.
I would, respect that.
Yeah.
There-
Well, it just means that maybe next year there'll be it for more than 100,000.
Right,
Yeah.
and I would say that that's probably something that, is definitely taking a look at. That would be mine, because, my take, 1 of 7, would be that, why are we leaving money on the table?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even though I also agree that, that I don't have a problem with reserve, we think the recession really hit, the council's been fairly stable over the years, and that recession really hit hard with how people look at things, and I think that's one reason, and I'm not speaking for BEC, but it's like, I don't want to count on money I don't have, and I get it, so. Okay, so we're at 100, that's what I heard from that end.
We'll still shoot for 100, right?
So then the question,
If it's under 5, then.
the question would be, how would you like to distribute that? Is there anything that that stands out or looks at? You could look at it each individually. You could look at it from percentage. What would would you like to go just on low hanging fruit? What would you like to do?
You do low hanging fruit, but at the same time, I was at the discussions with council when they reiterated the importance of how we allocate this fund and who we're allocating to, and to not pay attention to events that are just drawing in locals only, and just because they need the funding, to really pay attention to. And I think what was brought up last meeting was how is this fund helping the nonprofits? That's the back absurd way of thinking. These funds are supposed to help the hotels, and what are these organizations doing to fill hotel rooms?
Mm-hmm.
Not how can we help the nonprofits?
Nope.
So, and the council reiterated that too.
Mm-hmm.
That we need to look at it that way: is who's really working for the hotels? Whose job is it to fill the hotels? And unfortunately, most everyone up there, their main mission isn't to fill the hotels, to put on an event.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to see who's bringing people in and who's attracting the locals. And mind you, and I've said I go to all these events. I'm a local here. I attend most all these, so I have nothing against them.
No. Okay.
But I think the low hanging fruit's fairly easy, because it's hard to take away when you're already not given them much to start with.
Well, I know.
So
So is there anything you don't want to take away from right now? I'm just pulling the calculator, if I can find it.
who we want to take away from?
Or who would you leave as is?
Probably leave the Mustangs and the Saints.
And I would leave the city, because the city's for the ferry, right?
It's for the
It
ferry.
is for ferry side.
I'm questionable on that one.
My question on that one, ridership's mostly up Labor Day weekend, correct? That's when money's being made.
Yes.
And are the numbers consistently going up year to year as people realize that there is ferry service, as word gets out and there's consistency in the service? Or are the numbers going down, or do the businesses even want the ferry service? I mean, is it a worthwhile thing that's bringing people to the businesses? I don't know.
We haven't canvassed for that, but I do know in the past, some businesses, it's 50-50. Some businesses believe that it benefits them and others say it doesn't. I can say that Sunday's the only day where it's consistently increased, but we haven't had the consistent hours and days. So just the last few years is when we had it from 10 to 6. Before it was like 10 to 2.
That's what I didn't think.
We're no longer doing Fridays, we're no longer doing Saturdays.
So it's
Holidays are
confusing.
consistent, but it's very weather driven, and I think a few years ago we hit a low. And then it's hard to also gauge the consistently level, because last year was the first year that Kitsap Transit took a few of the holidays. They paid, so you don't have that ridership count either.
Well, does
So-
the ferry charge, or is it a free ferry?
It's a $2 service.
So they charge people.
And that $2 that they collect, it goes directly against the invoice that Kitsap Harbor Tours cost to run the service. So they're doing it for free. I shouldn't say free, how's that word? Their cost that they're charging for that service they have that cost, and then whatever ferry money that they collect, that $2 per person, gets subtracted from that, and then what's left is what historically City of Port Orchard, City of Bremerton, Port of Bremerton, Kitsap County pays. And that has gone down, but again, I can't tell if it's because it's ridership or because Kitsap Transit picked up a couple of the service states, which some of them were a moneymaker, some of them weren't.
Right. So my understanding is the City of Bremerton doesn't use LTAC funding for their portion.
General fund.
If it were cut from this, would the City of Port Orchard find somewhere else to pull it from? Or would it be a service that went away? Don't know.
I don't know. That discussion hasn't come up.
Well, I look at it two ways, because I brought this up before when you were at the original deliberations. I don't think we should be funding anything it's funded by taxpayers or by service. It's like giving money back to the city. Number two, it doesn't do anything for my hotel, and I pay into that fund a whole heck of a lot, and I don't see anything out of it. Does it help the downtown merchants? I think so.
I think so.
I think so, but this is a lodging tax fund.
Yeah, it helps the boat, I mean, it helps the marinas too. The boaters go back and forth for
Yeah.
events, so I see that as a benefit too.
And
But
I do know that the City of Bremerton does see a benefit to their merchants.
Yeah.
And that's why they continually to support it.
But,
other than that,
but
that's
they're not,
fine.
and they're definitely not advertising, stay in hotels. I mean, they're not doing it.
Yeah, and I know we have, like I said, we have people that are using it and utilizing it, I see that, but I just didn't know if it would be something that the city, how did they do it before? How long have they been getting lodging tax? Where did it come from before?
The first couple years, we actually made money because it was only on holiday events and we made money.
Gotcha.
And then they wanted to extend the hours, and I think, no, I take that back. Yes, they wanted to extend the hours, and they thought that with the extended hours, they would use lodging tax. So from what I remember, it's always been supported by lodging tax because the first couple of years we made money.
And it's 12 days? Is that right? 12 days, Sundays and holidays, that the service?
I'd say about that, yeah.
I say make Bremerton pay for it.
Well, is there any way kids at Transit, I mean, or, you know?
And unfortunately, we won't be having that meeting for
Right,
until the 14th.
right.
That's the soonest everybody can get together.
Is it like 9,000 people wrote it for those 12 days, 8,500, something like that? Is that right? You don't know?
Sounds about right. And I know the revenue
pull
that
it
came
from
in
what I
was
read.
about 6,000-ish, so it could be.
Let me go back to a remark Jack made earlier. This may be a way to help with that. If you're looking at, if you had to put a number like 1 to 3, 1 being
Yeah.
highest and 3 being lowest, how would you rate, forget the money aspect, how would you rate each one of the activities of putting people in beds? So if I said to you, is a Kitsap 1, 2, or 3, what would you say?
One. That's their only job.
Anybody can say otherwise. Pops up?
You have two different pops as.
As an organization in general, they're like a downtown merchant association,
Yeah.
right? So they're trying to create economic amongst themselves.
Sweet. Thank you.
So,
Two.
2? Okay, I mean, it's just a wedge. 2 for the second?
I don't remember what the asks are, but I'm just thinking as an organization.
Yep. Okay. Sydney Museum?
3.
3. Okay. Fathoms?
2.
Okay. Mustang?
I can't speak to what the car comes. Probably 2s. Maybe they
They're
try.
bringing people in from all over.
Yeah,
They know that.
but they're putting on beds.
Yeah.
I know, speaking for the Saints, I know we do bring people, because I see the car trailers parked in front of the hotels.
So what do you want to do? I'm good. I'm just putting a
I'd say in the middle too.
2?
Yeah,
Okay.
2s.
Chamber of Commerce?
That's a 2.
Yeah.
CPO?
1,
I say 3.
3.
Okay. Okay. So that's at least a mark, kind of starting point. So you have a 1. Do you want to leave that where we were with the amount?
From where I would recommend leaving it where it's at.
Yeah.
That's the only
Because they
organization.
do a lot of advertising.
Okay.
And their focus was gonna be on the new beer,
Nightlife.
Nightlife section for Port Orchard.
Yeah, nightlife.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as they promote all the hotels and events.
Okay. Kind of use this as an idea. So that's what I heard.
Mhm.
That's one. Then hold that steady. Okay. So the 2 POPSA, I don't have them in front of me, so
Yeah.
I can't remember which one was for.
Yeah.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Okay, so the 27,000 ask
Yep.
was for operations and events,
Okay. What was the other one?
tourism marketing.
Just to bring you up to speed, Lorraine, what we decided was to go for the 100,000 to be consistent each year. Also that the mayor and the council are going to talk about setting a policy by mid-year, and then also look at how funds are coming in and to make a decision about reserves. But that will happen during mid-year, not for this discussion of going to 125. So we're trying to get from 125 to 100,000.
I think that's a great accomplishment.
So these. so
At the
these-
request of the nonprofits.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. And then this here, I just asked people to say, hey, as far as putting, what events put people into beds, to see about, where to cut. That's where we're at. So that's what that number means, 1, 2, or 3 on those sides.
What does that number mean again?
Number 1 means that probably does a lot to put people in beds. 2, about put some people in beds. 3, not so much. Got a good way to look, sticking it. Okay. So, other numbers.
Well, you talk about the first level, the POBSA, talk about operations. The money is supposed to be meant for marketing for events, so I would probably cut the operations, but I wouldn't mind keeping the tourism marketing side, fairly close.
All right. Tour and marketing.
I don't have a number I'm gonna throw
Did
out
they
yet.
separate out the operations and events in that first section? Do you
Yes,
have- I
in there-
didn't bring
in
my
there.
stuff, I apologize. Yeah. I left it sitting on my desk.
So good. You were gonna throw a number?
I wasn't gonna throw a number out, I'm just voicing opinion to start.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here, I'll let you look through
Opinions are
and
good.
figure out which one.
I'm sorry,
you wanna look
thank
at.
you.
I apologize for being late. I had guests that arrived late and I've been working all
Yeah,
day.
guess. Awesome.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing, but it's, anyway, it's made for an interesting day, but, I just want to say that I think the biggest hits should be, at Visit Kitsap and Chamber of the Commerce. And the reason I'm picking on those two, and I don't mean to, and by the way, record, this is Lorraine Olson, I arrived late. I think that of those two, they have the biggest budgets and they have more resources. And they've asked for more than they typically have in the past. Now I understand the Chamber of Commerce is combining some things too. But when you look at some of these others, their budgets, they don't have other resources to fill in. And yet they're right here in Port Orchard. And so Visit Kitsap, I have to remind myself, that's the whole county and we're just a little tiny piece of it. And their budget is huge. And so in my mind, that was my contribution coming here, is that we look more, rather than nitpicking some of these smaller budgets, especially POPSA, because that impacts all of the businesses in downtown Port Orchard. Really look at it. Maybe you already had that discussion, and I don't want you to have to revisit it on my account, of these two larger requests that were especially Visit Kitsap, that was considerably more than last year. It's not that they're proposing to do great things. I think the city night is an awesome idea, but this may not be the year to be able to fully fund it. So that's just my statement.
What we talked about before prior was that we don't owe these organizations anything. These are lodging tax funds. It's not how can we help the nonprofits, it's how are these nonprofits helping putting heads in beds. And for me, no organization does anything for me on this board except for Visit Kitsap, and I put in almost half of this fund. So I look at who's helping support the hotels, because these are lodging tax funds. These aren't help the nonprofits. And I said, I support all these nonprofits. I donate to them. I attend all their events. But for me, Visit Kitsap's the most important one on there.
And that's where you walked in, where it was not to fully fund, but fund where we were at the recommended amount.
Yeah. Because the council asked us to go back and look and see who's actually putting heads in beds.
But there's really no way we can prove that with anybody. There's no scientific evidence that Visit Kitsap is better. We don't have a way to determine that, and that was really clear when we were talking to folks. So I don't know that it's fair that we make a decision based on what we think may or may not be true. Visit Kitsap could, because they have a broader reach than everybody else.
And to remind you, that's their only job. Their only job is to draw in visitors to stay in hotels. Every one of those other organizations, their main focus is not to bring people in. It's to put events or run an organization.
But those events put the towns on the map and makes people want to come and stay in the hotels. So I think you can argue.
There are tourism.
If they're the ones that aren't just bringing in the locals.
Yeah.
Like Chimes of Lights, that's just bringing in local.
But we as a committee don't really have that scientific evidence to make a decision based on whether we think that they're bringing in heads in beds or not. We're just not there yet. And that's really clear in our discussions with them. But they bring people to Port Orchard, and people do spend the night for a lot of these things too. But we don't have any way of tracking that. And I think we as a group or a city, we need to help find out. Or we're talking about a small amount of money. This is our tourism plan, and we're hoping that people stay overnight. But we don't even have a lot of hotels and motels in the first place here in Port Orchard. And people are staying with their friends and families and other places too.
What was the Visit Kitsap ask last year? I know they're coming up more this year with the nightlife.
I don't have that with me,
thing.
but I can go downstairs and print it out real quick. What you guys
I've got it here. Should be in your spreadsheet stuff.
We are a very, very small part of their budget.
Of Visit Kitsap's budget?
Yes, and last year it was about 12,000.
But they only allocate their time and effort according to what we give them as a municipality. So they concentrate more on the county because the county gives them $300,000.
Not disagreeing with that at all.
Yeah, so I think we should be in proportion to what, that the municipalities give out. Not just say, hey, we'll give them $9,000, then we get basically nothing.
I don't know, I thought I had that big spreadsheet in here somewhere, but maybe not. The one that you made.
Do you want to go ahead and print that just one copy?
Oh, wait, here. There it is. You can
So
find
what was
that.
the question?
Visit Kitsap's
Last
ask
year.
last year?
So they requested 12 and it was allocated 12.
So it's doubled.
Okay, so they're 12 and 12. Can you do the other ones with, you'd have to kind of put numbers together for some folks.
Yeah, so POBSA. Okay, so the event marketing, operations and events, they requested 17,100.
Let's put 17.
Okay.
What did they fund?
And that actually was, hold on, double checking real quick. That was for both,
Okay.
both ask. They put it all under one last year.
Okay. 17 and 12? was the grant was 12?
Oh, what they were allocated,
Yeah.
15.
15, okay. Okay. Sydney?
They asked for 7,000 and received 5.
Okay. Fathoms?
Asked for 24 and received 22,000.
Yeah, and part of that was the truck this year. Mustang? They're fairly similar.
Oh, that's fine. This, let me think here. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong numbers.
Okay, go ahead.
So Visit Kits app is correct, 12 and 12. I was
Yeah.
looking at 17 because we're in 18, so I was looking at 17, but it's really 18 allocations. Okay.
That's why I thought it's
So
better
it's
than you
this
read
year.
these.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so POBSA, that's why I couldn't find anything
Yeah.
for, okay, POBSA, let me look at theirs.
Okay.
Okay, so last year they did split it up in 2 allocations. So the
Right.
one for operations and events,
Yeah.
they asked for 24,000, and I'm rounding, and they got 13.
Okay.
For the tourism, they asked for 10, and they got almost 6,000.
Okay.
What's the other one? Sydney.
Yep.
Sydney asked for 5,000 last year,
Right.
actually the same amount as this year, and they got 2,800.
Okay.
And then,
I'll just put 3.
Mhm.
Okay.
and then now we're, Fathoms.
Fathoms.
So Fathoms, they encompass it all together, so they asked for 30,000 and they got 20,000.
Okay. 30 and 20. Okay.
Yeah. And then this 2018 is the first year that Mustang applied,
Okay.
and that would be, they asked for 2,300 and they got 2,100.
Okay. Saints? Bad pun. What did they march in with?
So they
said that
asked.
in advance.
You must have had a happy Monday.
So 2,300
Yeah.
and they got 2,100.
Okay. Chamber?
Okay, so chamber, let's see. I'm gonna add theirs together because they did 3 last year. So let's see, 10, 29, 20, I'd say 30,000.
Okay.
And they got 10, 24,000.
24?
24?
24,000.
Good.
Ish.
For a minute, I thought you said 4.
That's what I said.
I was like, wow, what a tough crowd. And CPO?
Barry asked for 8 and got 63. But there was
And
some,
spent?
what was that?
And then we're reimbursed for, did you use the whole?
6,058.
So close.
Yeah, and the reason why that was reduced so much is because at that point, I think by the time the committee recommendation, we had already got last year's, so they were able to shave off some. Okay, there you go.
All right. Now we gotta do some work, guys.
Yep.
And gals, it's just across the board. Okay? So.
What did the city, when they were looking at these, did they have any decisions on importance, or they just leave that to us?
It's us.
Except for the fact they did mention heads and beds, that's what Beck.
Heads and beds.
They mentioned over and over
Yeah,
and over.
heads and beds.
So,
I suppose a case could be made that the recommended numbers were, I mean, I wasn't at that meeting, but you guys thought about those really hard, and is there a case to say, since we have to knock it down another 25, to base it off of a percentage fairly across the board? Or take a look
You
at
could do
each,
that.
or take a look at each individually?
Well, that's a question.
Yeah.
individually, because I could take CPO off the board.
And actually, CPO could theoretically get the funding from, instead of $2 a trip, $3 a trip, and then whatever the city can find unawares. And I would say that they don't, going by the heads and beds thing, I would say, yeah, they don't put heads in beds.
And I would say that is real critical to supporting people who are staying here overnight and getting back and forth to things and over to Seattle. And again, I don't think we should say that one does better than another right now, because we really don't know. I have people that arrive on the ferry sometimes, and then when I have guests going online and trying to figure out when the ferry's running and when it's not running, and I think we should support that. I don't know that you could prove any more or any less between any of the other folks at this time. And I don't disagree with the heads and beds. I know what the purpose is. But then we need more scientific evidence about which is which. But I think it's really important to support the ferries, to provide that continuous support. If we pull the funds back and they have to change the hours, people will never know when that dang thing is running, and will never know whether it's gonna work or not, because people, it's not that they don't know about it, they don't write it because they can't count on the hours.
That's why I had asked before you got here, I'd asked Brandy if it's showing any consistency in ridership. I don't know that it has had enough years to establish itself yet or not. I don't know that your numbers really support that or not.
I agree at that point, to a point, but it's not our job to fund that. That's a government agency, that's their job.
It is our job. It is our job to fund it. We've been funding it for years,
They need to figure it out.
and it is our job.
They need to figure it out.
And you've got personal opinions, but sometimes we all have to sort of set those aside here and figure out what's best for Port Orchard right now.
No, this fund is supposed to be what's best for the hotels. That's who's paying into it, not what's best for the businesses. The hotels are the taxpayer. I'm the one who writes that check.
Well, what recommendations would we have? I mean, it's, I hate to say it, but we've kind of going in circular logic to a certain degree over several meetings, and bottom line is we need to come down to 100,000.
We need to cut $25,000.
We need to cut 25,000. So what if we take this is what we've done in the past, we take the really small ones and we just fund them.
That's what we did with
Yeah.
Mustang and Saints there.
And
Well, it looks like they were cut a little bit last year, just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah, and and so we could, but it's a place to start. And then even if you drew this out, the gap would really be at 6,500, between 6,500 and the 10,000. That's a huge gap. And so why not look at the 6,500 and the 5,000 as maybe keeping them for now, and then looking at these other bigger ones to the percentage that you were talking about, and just see
where it is.
Where that gets us.
Okay. So
Just as a starting
So
point.
Just as a starting
so
point.
what are you saying? Fully fund Mustang and Saints?
Mustangs, just for now, just
Yeah, I
for
understand.
the purposes
And
of
you wanna-
planning, the city and the Sydney Museum.
Okay.
Just for
Just
now.
fully funded.
Yeah, for now. And then taking these larger ones, starting with the $10,000 one from HOPSA and up, because I was just looking for a fair line to draw.
Well, it's fair, you might as well just do it even across the board for everybody.
You
Even
could.
percentage.
You could. And then take these larger ones. I don't have a
Okay.
a laptop to do
We
that.
can do this. So so this is where you're saying, okay, we're there on these items right now.
Just for now.
Just for now.
Just for a way for us to move
Yeah.
forward.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, so that's 16. Right now that's 16,470. Okay, so that means you gotta come down to 83,530 and take that 16,470 minus, hang on a minute, minus the 125 equals 10853. Convoluted logic, just hang with me, guys.
You're fine, as long as you come out with
Oh, yeah.
what's the amount that we have to drop down.
Well, that part I got. What I'm doing with, basically, you'd be reducing everybody down by 76, actually, 0.9%. Is if you just did it across, the board.
Yeah,
So,
we'd be
so
reducing-
play that out with each
Okay,
one and just see
so
what that looks
if-
like.
I think
Okay.
like 24%.
Yeah, by
Yes, so we'd actually be reducing everyone by 24%?
No,
23%.
Because that's 76% of.
it's 76.9, so, hang on, yeah, that's it. So this up
Right.
here would be roughly 16,918.
Oh, you're saying 76% of their
Yeah.
ask?
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
so we're
Same thing.
Same-
We're
same-
saying the
same
same
thing,
thing.
Yeah, gotcha, okay.
Yeah, it's I told you I had convoluted logic.
No.
Okay.
You're a genius at budgets. We know that.
So this is-
Or at least I know that.
This one's next
That's
one's
easy.
Hey, I got that one.
Right.
Oops, sorry. That's what it would look like.
So the only one that's really going down from last year, if you go by last year's give,
Yeah.
the only one that's going down, everybody's gone up except for Chamber of Commerce, they've gone down.
Hubsa went up, Hubsa went up, Sydney went up, Fathoms up.
That's not a bad distribution.
Chamber down.
I'll give you another number here in a second. No, you got $71 to play with.
Yeah, that's how it's coming up too, okay.
Well, if you're gonna have the 71, I'd say put the Chamber of Commerce, give them the 71.
I agree.
Because they're the only one, everybody else is got a gain, they're the only ones that went down.
If you, the ones that you kept the same, the lower ones, if you gave them, if you did everybody across the board, I wonder if Chamber would look a little, if, you know what I mean, if it'd be a little,
They get a little more.
yeah.
Everyone will get
A little,
just a little.
yeah,
They'd probably be close to where they were last year.
exactly, that's what I'm, so that they're not taking a loss.
Hang on a second, let me do one other thing real quick.
Because they do the Harbor Festival and they do the Seagull and all kinds of stuff. Explore Port Orchard's part of that as well, because they combined it.
The more and more I think about it, I'm kind of like with you as far as what this ferries is.
Yeah.
The more and more I'm thinking about, the more I'm agreeing with you as far as the ferries. I mean, it does benefit the businesses downtown,
I never denied that. I agree with that.
but it's, yeah, as far as, I think, like I say, if you want to factor in, I really don't think anybody coming across in the ferry is staying in any hotels. You know, for those, and we're not talking the everyday ferry, we're just talking for the events, because that's all, that 6,500 isn't for funding for the normal ferry runs that are going every day. It's just for those events that, the weekend events. And I think the people that are running the fair, I don't believe any of them are staying in any rooms. They come
It's
across the
some.
ferries for the events. You think so?
I do, because I get them that come into the office that are staying in the hotel downtown, and they'll walk across to Seattle and ask about, what to do over there. I think you get a few. I don't think you get a whole bunch, but you
How do
get
they go home on
some.
Sundays?
What's
If
that?
they check out of the hotel on Sunday, how do they get home?
I don't know.
They don't go home till Monday. I already
Oh.
mentioned that I've had people
Mhm.
ride the ferries. That's why I think they're so important.
I definitely think there's something for when someone's here, there's something to do. Flip side is the Turner Joy Bremerton. It's great once you're here, it's a good place to go, but,
But I've had people get on the ferry in Seattle and ride over and stay and take the foot ferry from Bremerton here. And then they wait and go back it's running on Sundays in the summertime.
Well, it's nice to have that extended service, and I don't think that there's enough historical data to see whether or not that, people have figured out that it's running and that it's there to use, but I do kind of in the back of my head say, okay, Bremerton's funding it a little differently, and that's why I asked if the city,
the ones who benefit.
I don't want to see it go away. I'd like to see the city pick it up another,
The ones who
another
benefit
part of
should.
their budget maybe.
The ones who benefit should fund it. So all the downtown organizations on both sides of the water, because that gets people there in their shops.
So is there a motion
To
to
ask
accept?
task my hotel to fund it's not
Okay.
fair.
So I'll make a motion that we accept this distribution.
Is there a second?
No, I think we should just do it evenly across the board.
But I have a motion, so we can have a discussion if you'd like to,
Yeah.
and then we need to take a vote.
Yeah.
And if it votes no, then
Okay, so
we're not done.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Of where we're at.
But the 11.5
Yeah.
numbers.
Okay. Now discussion.
I kind of go back to what I originally said. I think the hard work was done, and I would say just, if you're going to do it percentage-wise, do it evenly down the line.
I agree with that.
Okay, can I have a vote on 11-5-18?
Okay, I vote for.
2,
I vote
4,
for it.
against? Okay. I have no vote, so it's a tie. Doesn't carry. Is there another motion?
Do the opposite.
Well, no, I mean, it's worth talking about, There's another, point that somebody just brought up, and so. I'll leave that for right now.
Well, as an argument for the 11.5, I think to go all the way across the board, out of the smaller ones, and this isn't not just because I'm a saint, but the smaller ones. I mean, the ask is so small. I mean, to cut anything out of those really does take a chunk out of because they're not asking for much, and they pretty much need or use what they're asking. I mean, it's not. I mean, speaking strictly like for the Saints, we spend way more than the $2,400 that we're given. But so take a chunk out of those smaller ones, the Mustangs, the Saints, the Sydney Museum,
Okay.
and stuff is, they're stretched pretty thin as it is, and it's where the other ones have such a huge ask, and they're getting a significant more than what they had asked for last year, or got last year, other than the chamber. That's the only one that's.
And I was thinking the same thing. It disproportionately impacts the smaller ones.
I'm just writing up on what does it look like if it was across the board. Actually, I screwed up. Apologize. Did that right. So now you're reading test for you.
How much are you reducing each of them by?
20%.
Oh, 20%, okay.
Yeah, because that's what it would be to
25,000,
reduce it.
yeah, percent of one, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I can figure out by myself. That's what it would look like. So comparatively to last year, Kitsap would be up, Popsa would be up from where they were. Sydney would be up, Fathoms would be up, Mustang would be down, Saints would be down, Chamber would be down, and CPO would be down. Let me know if I got any numbers wrong. So that's another way of just looking at it.
I guess I go back to the first part of our meeting where you asked, you know, where we numbered everything, prioritized 1, 2, and 3, and say, do those numbers match what our priority was, you know? Does that seem in proportion?
It does, but it's,
You know.
maybe we can sit here and argue that all night.
All night.
Well, yeah, you can.
All night.
Disproportionate, each person has their own feeling. I don't know, it doesn't, when you add the percentages in, it doesn't really change a whole lot
Well,
from the blue to the red.
it doesn't, I kind of see what Lorraine was saying, it doesn't for the bigger ones, but it does for the littler ones.
Mhm.
When you do it like that, instead of even breaking even with last year, they do go down.
I still like the 11.5 if we're gonna reduce, going back to 100,000, I think the 11.5 is a fair
Allocation.
allocation across the board as far as. I think the red ones, 80% does disproportionately affect the smaller ones
It did.
more so that it affects the higher
I
ones.
agree with that.
I say just go back to the 125.
Yeah.
No,
Just make it easy.
no, that ship has sailed.
That's
No.
it. That's it. That is not. Last facilitator, I'll
No.
say that is dead.
But I like your thinking.
You sure got on time from the dock, I mean.
Well, absent absence of anything else, I'll go back and say if we feel that the 80 is disproportionate to the smaller funded, then do you want to go back to the 11.5 or make any changes that would make the 11.5 more palatable?
Yeah, there's got to be a happy medium, or I like the 11.5 better than the 80, but I'm still wondering if maybe there isn't a happy medium there somewhere, but
I just see a bunch of numbers.
Do you want to take them one by one?
I think we have a good solution here. I mean, how much time are
I
we
agree.
going to sort of
over a couple
nitpick
$1,000s.
through this? And I think the 11.5 is very justifiable. I think we had a very thoughtful process to get to that. And when you look at how it compares to their ask, it seems a little bit more consistent than when we did the 80%. And this could be the last year that it's like this. Maybe next year there'll be more emphasis, there'll be more direction on heads and beds. Maybe there'll be a policy in place for the reserve funds or the fund balance,
It could be
whatever.
double the applicants.
And wouldn't that be wonderful? But we had fewer applicants this year, and so I don't know why we would continue to sort of nitpick through this when we've got two viable solutions that we've spent a lot of time coming up with.
So I guess my question is the way I always try to reach consensus. I don't like compromise because that means somebody gives something up. So my one on reaching consensus is, can you live with it?
Mhm.
You know, we don't have an odd number of group, not an odd group, odd number of group. So, you know, in reality, to do this, can you live with 11.5? Or do you want to propose a number up or down in any of the different categories?
I can live with 11.5.
I can.
Mhm.
I can as well.
Okay, and that's what we'll propose to the council, and with the caveats, and you can hold my feet to the fire. You know where to find me. How many rows of puppies are there in the phone book?
I know where you work.
And you know where I work. So only for a short time longer.
Yeah,
But
Really?
this is my last year.
Is it really?
Mhm.
You're gonna retire after this year?
From there.
From there?
So I got my Medicare card now.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's what we'll go with, and my commitment is to you is that we'll meet again this summer sometime, and with a policy, and with looking at numbers to see if there's anything that we want to do as an increase.
Nice, good job, Jay.
And I think that's a great thing that's come out of this whole exercise.
I do.
Yeah.
I really feel that way. Anything else for the good of the order? Randy?
Nope. I plan on presenting this to the council at the November 13th council meeting, which is the next one. And
Week from
get
tomorrow.
direction from there, yes.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Take some pizza.